My name is Adrian, and if you had asked me a year ago where I'd be today, I would have told you something safe, something predictable. Maybe sitting in my corner office at Novacore Industries, sipping coffee while reviewing quarterly reports. Or maybe finally taking that vacation to Tuscany I'd been dreaming about since forever. But life has a funny way of rewriting your plans, doesn't it? If someone had told me back then that I'd find myself standing in the middle of a boardroom with security guards saluting me instead of escorting me out, I would have laughed until tears streamed down my face. But here we are. It all started on one of those days when everything felt heavy, the kind of day where even the air seemed determined to crush you under its weight. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I walked into the boardroom, heels clicking against the marble floor. My heart pounded like a drum roll before an execution, though I tried to keep my expression calm, composed. This was supposed to be just another meeting, a routine check-in for Project Ether, the initiative I poured every ounce of myself into over the past 2 years. Project Ether wasn't just some flashy tech idea dreamed up by board executives. It was revolutionary. It promised clean energy solutions that could change the world, or so I believed. And I wasn't alone. The team I led shared that belief, working late nights and weekends, sacrificing holidays and personal time because they saw the potential too. We weren't building software or gadgets, we were building hope. At least, that's what I thought until this morning. The boardroom was already filled when I arrived. The long mahogany table gleamed under the harsh light, surrounded by faces I knew well but barely trusted anymore. On one side sat Victor Langston, Novacore's CEO, a man whose polished exterior hid decades of calculated ruthlessness. He wore his usual expensive suit, tailored to perfection, and his sharp eyes scanned the room like a hawk hunting prey. Across from him were the other members of the executive board, investors, stakeholders, people who cared more about profit margins than progress. I took my seat near the end of the table, clutching the folder containing our latest milestones. My palms were sweaty, and I wiped them discreetly on my skirt. Something didn't feel right. The atmosphere was tense, electric, like the calm before a storm. Normally, these meetings began with polite small talk, but today there was none of that. Everyone sat stiffly, eyes darting between Victor and me. Whatever was coming, it wasn't good. Victor cleared his throat, and the sound echoed through the silent room. "Adrian," he said, his voice smooth and measured. "Thank you for joining us today." His tone was cordial, almost friendly, but I knew better. There was always a razor's edge beneath his words. "Of course," I replied, forcing a smile. "Happy to be here." He leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on the table. "As you know, Project Ether has been ambitious, groundbreaking even. However, recent developments have raised concerns among the board regarding its feasibility and alignment with Novacore's strategic goals." My stomach dropped. Feasibility, alignment, those were code words for trouble. I glanced around the room, searching for any sign of support, but found only blank stares and pursed lips. Even Marcus, my closest ally on the board, avoided eye contact. "I'm not sure I understand," I said carefully, trying to mask the panic rising in my chest. "We've hit every milestone ahead of schedule. The prototypes are performing beyond expectations. What exactly are these concerns?" Victor's smile didn't reach his eyes. "It's not about performance, Adrian. It's about priorities. While Project Ether is undoubtedly impressive, it requires resources, significant resources, that could otherwise be allocated to initiatives with clearer, immediate returns." Clearer returns. Translation, short-term profits. Of course. I clenched my fists under the table, nails digging into my palms. "With respect, Mr. Langston, Project Ether isn't just another initiative. It's a game changer. Clean energy solutions aren't just profitable, they're necessary. They're the future. And yet," he countered smoothly, "the future is uncertain. Investors prefer certainty." That was it. The final blow. He wasn't interested in innovation or impact. All he cared about was padding Novacore's bottom line, no matter the cost. Anger bubbled inside me, hot and unrelenting, but I forced myself to stay calm. Losing my temper wouldn't help anyone. "So what happens now?" I asked, my voice steady despite the turmoil raging within. Victor folded his hands neatly on the table. "The board has decided to suspend further funding for Project Ether effective immediately. Your team will be reassigned to other projects and you," he paused, letting the weight of his words sink in, "will step down as project lead." The room spun. My vision blurred, and for a moment, I thought I might faint. Step down? After everything I'd sacrificed? Everything my team had worked for? Before I could respond, Victor continued, "For the sake of transparency, we'll need you to leave the premises immediately. Security will escort you to gather your belongings." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Escort me out? Like some common criminal? Humiliation burned in my cheeks, but I refused to let them see me break. Instead, I stood slowly, straightening my spine and meeting Victor's gaze head-on. If that's how you want to play this, I said evenly, then fine. But don't think this is over. I turned toward the door, expecting 2 burly security guards to appear and drag me away. Instead, a single figure stepped into the doorway. It was Ryan Carter, the head of Novacore's security team. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a military bearing that commanded respect, Ryan had always struck me as the type of person who followed orders without question. Yet as he entered the room, his expression was unreadable. "Miss Adrian," he said, his deep voice cutting through the tension. "Please come with me." For a split second, I hesitated. Was this really happening? Was I being ousted like this, in front of everyone? But then something unexpected happened. As I moved toward the door, Ryan raised his hand, not to grab my arm, but in a crisp, formal salute. The gesture stunned me. Before I could process it, the rest of the security team filed into the room, each one following Ryan's lead. One by one, they saluted me, their faces solemn but resolute. The boardroom felt utterly silent, the air thick with disbelief. Even Victor looked taken aback, his confident facade cracking ever so slightly. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, his voice sharp with irritation. Ryan didn't answer. Instead, he turned to me and spoke quietly, just loud enough for me to hear. "Ma'am, if you'll follow me, we'll ensure your departure is handled with dignity." Dignity. That word struck a chord deep within me. 4 weeks, months, I'd been fighting tooth and nail to protect Project Ether, to prove its worth. And now, here I was, being humiliated in front of the very people who should have supported me. But Ryan's actions gave me something I hadn't expected, a glimmer of hope. As we left the boardroom, whispers erupted behind us. I caught snippets of conversation, confusion, outrage, admiration. Some of the board members exchanged uneasy glances, while others stared after me with expressions I couldn't quite decipher. Whatever they were thinking, one thing was clear. This wasn't the outcome Victor had anticipated. Ryan led me down the hallway, his presence both reassuring and enigmatic. "Why did you do that?" I asked finally, unable to contain my curiosity. He glanced at me briefly, his piercing blue eyes locking onto mine. "Because sometimes, Miss Adrian, leadership isn't about titles or power. It's about doing what's right. And anyone who knows what you've done for this company knows you deserve better than what just happened in there." His words hit me like a tidal wave. Leadership, respect, integrity. These were values I'd fought for, not just in my work, but in how I treated others. And somehow, Ryan and his team had seen that, recognized it, honored it. When we reached my office, Ryan instructed his team to stand guard outside, ensuring no one disturbed me as I packed my things. Inside, I found myself surrounded by reminders of everything I'd built: awards, photographs, notes scribbled during brainstorming sessions. Each item carried memories of triumphs and struggles, laughter and tears. Packing them felt like saying goodbye to a part of myself. Ryan lingered near the door, watching me silently. There was something about him, an intensity, a quiet strength, that made me want to trust him. "You don't have to go through this alone," he said softly. "Whatever you decide to do next, I'll support you." His offer caught me off guard. Support, from someone I barely knew, yet who had shown me such unexpected loyalty. In that moment, I realized I wasn't as alone as I'd feared. Perhaps this wasn't the end of my story. It was merely the beginning of a new chapter. Over the next few days, I retreated to my apartment, grappling with the aftermath of what had happened. The media picked up the story quickly, thanks to leaks from sympathetic employees at Novacore. Headlines blared phrases like corporate betrayal and whistleblower heroine, painting me as either a victim or a crusader depending on who was writing. Friends and colleagues reached out, offering condolences and encouragement, but I kept mostly to myself, unsure of what to say or how to move forward. During this time, Ryan became a constant presence in my life. He stopped by daily, bringing coffee and updates on the growing unrest within Novacore. Employees were staging protests, demanding answers about Project Ether's abrupt shutdown. Investors questioned the board's decision, citing the public backlash as a threat to the company's reputation. Even Victor seemed rattled, though he publicly maintained that the decision was final. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, Ryan joined me on my balcony. We sat in comfortable silence, sipping wine and watching the city lights flicker to life below. "You inspire people, Adrian," he said suddenly, breaking the quiet. "Even when you don't realize it." I turned to look at him, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. I don't feel very inspiring right now, I admitted. I feel lost. He nodded, as if he understood completely. Sometimes, inspiration comes from vulnerability. People see you standing up for what you believe in, even when it costs you everything. That takes courage. His words resonated deeply, stirring something inside me I hadn't felt in years. Purpose. Maybe losing Project Ether wasn't the end. Maybe it was an opportunity to start fresh, to build something greater, to make a difference in ways I hadn't imagined. As the weeks passed, Ryan and I grew closer. Our conversations shifted from strategy and solidarity to dreams and desires. He told me stories of his time in the military, of the camaraderie and sacrifice that shaped him. I shared my own journey, the moments of doubt and triumph that defined my career. Slowly but surely, a connection formed between us, one rooted in mutual respect and understanding. One night, as we strolled along the waterfront, Ryan stopped abruptly and turned to face me. The moonlight reflected in his eyes, making them shine like stars. "Adrian," he began, his voice trembling slightly, "I know this isn't the best timing, given everything that's happened. But I can't keep pretending I don't feel something for you." My breath hitched. Feelings I'd buried beneath layers of anger and disappointment surged to the surface, overwhelming and undeniable. "Ryan," I whispered, reaching for his hand, "neither can I." In that moment, amidst the chaos and uncertainty of my life, I found clarity. Love wasn't something I'd expected to discover in the wake of betrayal and loss. Yet here it was, blooming like a flower in the cracks of broken pavement. And perhaps, just perhaps, it was exactly what I needed to rebuild, not just my career, but my heart. As the days turned into weeks, Ryan and I found ourselves navigating a delicate balance between our growing relationship and the storm surrounding Novacor. The protests outside the company headquarters grew louder, fueled by leaked emails that revealed Victor Langston's manipulative tactics to suppress Project Ether. Employees rallied behind me, sharing stories of how my leadership had inspired them to innovate and push boundaries. Investors began pulling out, citing ethical concerns about Victor's decision-making. It was chaos, but it was also hope. Ryan became my anchor during this turbulent time. His unwavering support gave me the strength to face each day with renewed determination. Together, we strategized on how to reclaim control of Project Ether, not just for ourselves, but for everyone who believed in its potential. Late nights were spent poring over documents, drafting proposals, and planning our next move. Yet amidst the intensity, there were moments of lightness. Shared laughter over takeout dinners, spontaneous walks under the stars, whispered promises of a future where we could build something truly meaningful together. One evening, as we sat in my apartment surrounded by papers and blueprints, Ryan looked at me thoughtfully. "You know," he said, his voice soft but firm, "this fight isn't just about you or Project Ether anymore. It's about proving that integrity still matters, that doing what's right can win." His words struck a chord deep within me. He was right. This wasn't just about salvaging my career, it was about standing up for values that had been eroded by greed and short-sightedness. For too long, corporations like Novacor had prioritized profit over progress. But maybe, just maybe, we could change that narrative. With Ryan's help, I reached out to former colleagues and allies within Novacor. Many of them were disillusioned with Victor's leadership and eager to see a shift. Slowly, we built a coalition, a network of people willing to testify against Victor's unethical practices and advocate for Project Ether's revival. At the same time, I began reaching out to external stakeholders, environmental organizations, tech innovators, and even government agencies interested in sustainable energy solutions. The response was overwhelming. People wanted to believe in a better way forward, and they saw Project Ether as a beacon of possibility. The turning point came when an investigative journalist published an exposé detailing Victor's misuse of company funds and his attempts to discredit me. The article went viral overnight, sparking outrage across social media and forcing Novacor's board to convene an emergency meeting. I knew this was my chance to make my case, not just for Project Ether, but for a new vision of leadership. The morning of the meeting, Ryan accompanied me to Novacor's headquarters. As we walked through the glass doors, I felt a strange mix of nerves and resolve. This place had once been my home, a symbol of everything I'd worked for. Now, it felt alien, tainted by betrayal. But I refused to let fear dictate my steps. Inside the boardroom, the atmosphere was electric. Board members exchanged tense glances, their faces pale with apprehension. Victor sat at the head of the table, his usual composure shattered. When I entered, all eyes turned to me. For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air. "Thank you for allowing me to speak today," I began, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness or reinstatement. I'm here because Project Ether represents more than just a business opportunity. It represents hope. Hope for a cleaner, brighter future. Hope for communities around the world struggling with energy poverty. And hope for employees who deserve leaders who value innovation over exploitation. I paused, letting my words sink in before continuing. What happened to me was wrong, not just morally but strategically. Shutting down Project Ether sent a message to the world that NovaCore cares more about short-term profits than long-term impact. If you want to restore trust, if you want to remain relevant, you need to embrace change. You need to stand for something bigger than yourselves. When I finished speaking, the room erupted into murmurs. Some board members nodded approvingly, while others exchanged worried looks. Victor, however, remained silent, his jaw clenched tightly. Finally, Marcus, the one ally I'd always counted on, spoke up. "She's right," he said firmly. "We've made mistakes, and it's time to correct them. Adrian has proven herself to be a leader of unparalleled integrity and vision. We owe it to her, and to ourselves, to give Project Ether another chance." One by one, other board members voiced their agreement. By the end of the meeting, a unanimous decision had been reached. Victor would step down as CEO, and I would be reinstated as head of Project Ether. More importantly, NovaCore committed to restructuring its priorities, placing sustainability and innovation at the forefront of its mission. In the weeks that followed, life settled into a rhythm of rebuilding and renewal. With Ryan by my side, I threw myself into reviving Project Ether, working tirelessly to bring it back from the brink. Our team reunited with renewed passion, driven by the knowledge that we were part of something transformative. Progress was slow but steady, and soon, prototypes were being tested in real-world scenarios, yielding results that exceeded even our wildest expectations. Through it all, Ryan remained my rock. His belief in me never wavered, and neither did mine in him. One crisp autumn evening, as we stood on the rooftop of NovaCore's headquarters watching the sunset paint the skyline in shades of gold and crimson, he took my hand and turned to face me. "Adrian," he said, his voice trembling with emotion, "you've shown me what it means to fight for what you believe in. You've inspired me to be a better person. And I can't imagine spending the rest of my life without you." Tears welled in my eyes as he knelt down and pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. Inside was a simple yet elegant ring, its diamond catching the fading sunlight. "Will you marry me?" he asked, his gaze filled with love and vulnerability. For a moment, I couldn't speak. My heart swelled with gratitude for the journey that had brought us here, for the challenges that had forged our bond, and for the future that stretched before us like an open horizon. Finally, I nodded, my voice breaking as I whispered, "Yes." As Ryan slipped the ring onto my finger and pulled me into his arms, I realized that this was more than just a happy ending. It was a beginning, a promise of a life built on love, resilience, and shared dreams. Together, we had faced adversity and emerged stronger. Together, we would continue to create a legacy that mattered. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the city in a warm glow, I knew one thing for certain. Sometimes, the greatest victories are born from the deepest struggles. And sometimes, the most beautiful love stories grow from the ashes of heartbreak.